and I were outside talking about what is the new reality of distribution. Anyone have any idea? So let's start there. Hi everybody. Welcome back.
Hi,
Good to
Marc.
see you all. Hi David. So we did talk real briefly last night, allegedly, and no, I remember it. I just said it. We did talk allegedly. So it is an interesting topic, right? All right. So here we are. How many people have been in the room with us before? Let's just show of hands there. How many people are here because you're thinking about entering distribution? You're distribution curious. And how many people are doing distribution and hate your life? All right, you're my people. So it is like awesome and crazy and unique that we are in this brewery model. Some of us longer than others. It's not a shot at your age. You just have a long heritage of distributing beer. But the rules keep changing. The climate keeps changing. So let's just, if you've been in this room with us before, we don't do a presentation, we don't have pie charts, it's more just like an open conversation. We want to answer your questions, we want to help tackle anything. There's a lot of experience on this side of the table, there's a lot of experience at the eyeball staring back at us. So, let's, I guess, just start there. What are the biggest challenges if you have one big question that you want to walk out of this room with some sort of hopeful answer to, what would it be? What's the big question about it? I knew there'd be a lot of questions.
So it's a catch-22. I go to the distributor, love your product, it's great, and I'd love to stock it when you get to a bigger scale. I go to Whole Foods, we love your product, it's great, we want to stock it. Who's your distributor? Don't have one. Okay, we can't stock you until you're a distributor. So something like, you both like the product, you both think it can sell, but neither of you are willing to take the risk.
Yeah, and I think some of that, you'll have to interrupt me or you'll never.
Yeah, I'll give you an economic thing here. Everybody wants to be what they are, right? And if you're selling beer on your premises, I call it $7 a pint. We're not supposed to talk price, but $7 a pint. If you sell a case of beer, for us, when we sell a case of beer, we make $8, $9 a case, okay? I'm running 15,000 cases on my bottle line a day alone. You might be doing 100, 200, 300, and by the time your cost of goods are out of control, by the time you get to Whole Foods, you're not making money. Focus on what you're really good at in your premise. Treehouse has showed us all that's the best model. So think how much you make a barrel when you sell it on your premise, and I'm going to tell you that we own Flying Bison in Buffalo. Our cost of goods there are $8 a case more than they are in Utica. And yet I gotta sell it at Sam Adams type pricing. We're making $2 a case. That operation is only profitable because we bring the big volume back to Utica and sell, then produce it and move it to Buffalo. And I don't mean to be a jerk about this, but everybody wants to be what they aren't. If you have a tap room, if you got a brew pub, sell all the goddamn beer you can out of your own brewery. Stop worrying about going out and working in the mainstream world. And what I'll tell you, for all those people that say, I'm gonna buy your beer, I'm gonna buy your beer. Well, you know what? They have 10 other beers they buy too. So they'll buy yours once, and then you'll be waiting around until they buy it again, and it's a headache. If you walk out of here with one thing, don't get in the distribution business. And I would tell you, for us,
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
if I would say one other thing, we as a family at one time owned 19 beer distributorships. So if you go across New York State, Deaker, McCraith and Utica, Onondaga Beverage, Wright Wisner, Try It. All those were our beer distributorships. We had Utica Club, Schlitz, Beck's, St. Pauli Girl. We should have stayed in that business and gotten out of the beer business, and we'd be $1 billion company today. And we're not $1 billion company. Not that money is everything.
Be a collection tray going around for the Matt family.
Exactly. That's the one thing I want from everybody, a fucking dollar.
So it's an interesting point of the conversation, right? Here are two guys that distribute a shit ton of beer and a little bit of beer telling you not to do it. But I can tell you as a brewery that's doing it, it's been necessary for us because there's a revenue stream that comes at it. We continue at the pub in our tap room, and having known some of you and talking to you, we are now looking at, we're going to try and take advantage of that satellite location. We're going to go open a satellite tap room for that very reason, so that we can capture more of that margin. So we are this kind of hybrid. I don't regret distribution. Say it with a lot of humility, we're a bit of a unicorn because we had a product that people seem to want and relationships that delve back 20 plus years. So it was a little bit of an easier course for us. It's not necessarily for everybody, but it will echo what Fred's saying, and a lot of what you're hearing at this conference is continue to focus on your tap rooms, continue to focus on your pub, sell as much beer as you possibly can. If you have to enter distribution because you have excess liquid, let's talk about that. Is that really the right path? Is that what you need to do? Is it what you want to do? Rich Michaels put out something recently about this and talking about how it's back to being about as competitive in the grocery aisle as it's ever been before. And the other component that no one really wants to talk about, or maybe they are and I just haven't heard it, is that here in New York we have this Home D section, these big beer stores that all they have is beer and pop and what have you. We're finding, I don't know about you, but they're getting kicked in the shins, and they have, and I think it's, again, it's an assumption, but a direct result of COVID, because now you've got Instacart, you've got these delivery services, so it's much easier. And also during COVID, the grocery channel completely turned on its heel, and they are now welcoming in local breweries. You don't need to be a distributor to have your beer in Wegmans anymore. Obviously, Naked Dove's in the room. You guys have been doing self-distribute there forever. But it was a much tougher game where you had to service those stores 7 days a week. They've really kind of flipped on their heel, and it's made Chopper, Hannaford, Tops, a lot of these places kind of in turn change their business model as well. But I can tell you it's competitive as shit. When we entered the market and Wegmans wanted to give me 3 facings out of the gate, I said, how about 2? And they looked at me perplexed. I'm like, I can always ask for the 3rd. I can never, I'd rather ask for the 3rd placement than start with 3 and lose the 1, because that will completely change our brewing operation and how we go to market. So again, we're encouraging that. How many people need to distribute beer? How many people are feeling that crunch to do it? Okay.
Excess liquid, so yeah.
Yes. Are you self-distributing?
So we self-distribute our own backyard, and I guess what my question was going to be is, how do you view self-distribution in your own backyard as it's small revenue generating? It's better than doing full distribution, but small revenue generating. But do you see that could offset this is in theory marketing? Don't make it a loss leader, but at least it's a small revenue generating marketing arm, or is that just complete bullshit? And you guys don't really see that trace back from self-distro to being a marketing arm and people in the tap room?
I mean, of course, it's visibility. And so that I'm a marketing sales guy, I'm not going to tell you that that's not a good thing. I just think, when you I'm a big believer in focus. Focus drives businesses. And when you focus on certain things and stay focused 100% on that thing, you do better. I get the liquid thing, but how much are you really focusing on when people come to your establishment, getting them to buy the beer to leave? And you might be better off doing some deal where you buy one and you get 20% off the next 12 pack or something if you buy it, just to get more sales leaving the brewery. I can tell you for us, we've only been in the tap room business for about a year in Utica and 3 or 4 in Buffalo. But the amount of beer that we could sell if we were pushing it in merchandise out of the brewery is unbelievable. And we just don't do anything about it. We don't have people, all the things where you order remotely, when people go and get the glasses, can I get you a beer? I mean, I literally have to force that. Every time I get someone to force it, they come back and go, I just got 7 pints I sold. I go back up to the table and say, let me ask you something. If that guy hadn't come around, would you have bought a pint? Nope. merchandise, make it easy. And I think that you can get a lot more out of your tap room than you can putting that time and energy out and making $2 a case at the market.
But I would opine to that regard, you asked it if it was like a marketing arm, and I would say, you know, to some degree, yes, you're Big Alice. People in this room know who Big Alice is. People in the city know what Big Alice is. Do people in the Finger Lakes area? Probably the locals do, but what about all the non-locals? Let's face it, it's a high tourist traffic area. So maybe it does make sense to high spot and grab a couple of high profile draft lines so that if they happen to stumble in that restaurant, what's this, where is it? Oh, it's Finger Lakes, it's nearby. Sure, let's make a stop. I mean, the internet's at our fingertips. I know we all travel like this, like where's the cool beer bar? Where's the brewery? Where's the cool coffee shop? So I wouldn't say it's totally irrelevant as a marketing strategy. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I go back to the days of working with Chris up in Lake Placid, and there early on was this mentality from the bars and restaurants around LP. They don't want to carry Boo Boo or any Lake Placid beer because they felt like they were just going to drive traffic back to the pub, right? Early on. And now you can't go into a single bar in that town and not find a Lake Placid product because they've, you know, made a name. They've also recognized, like, why am I not just selling local beer? You know, that rising tides lifts all boat type of thing, and I'm sure a lot of traffic makes their way back to the pub at some point when they leave the cottage or wherever it is. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that we try to sell people on the idea of if someone comes to Lake Placid, we hope they're going to drink Lake Placid beer. And they could drink it at your spot, or they could come to me. So you're almost forcing people to come to me if you don't carry it. So that resonated with most people. Like you said, I think we have like 96, 97% distribution now in town.
Yeah, and we struggled with that as we launched distribution in Auburn, New York. Suddenly there's 5 or 6 bars that are carrying Mass Riot or Crispy or whatever, and we wrestle with that. You know, it's like, shit, have someone going to this bar and drinking a pint for $7, $8 instead of coming to my place? So there is that little bit of a quandary. We haven't seen any evidence that our sales have slowed though at either place. I guess ultimately I look at it as somewhat of a sense of pride, like people like our beer that much that they want it at, you know, a bar that's 500 feet away from our original location. So it is, you know, there is, you know, we're talking about the new reality of distribution, and that's the theme of it, but there is this new reality. You know, we started with, you have people saying they want your beer, the distributor, Whole Foods won't take it unless you have a distributor. I can tell you right now, you're seeing wholesaler contraction, you're seeing wholesalers selling to one another, they're getting bigger. They are just operational machines. They're all about logistics, about how to move as much product. We're seeing the right companies now into the potato chip business, so it's no longer just beer. So it is definitely a scary place to be because I don't think they're looking for a lot of new breweries to add. You know, you brought up Treehouse. I think there's maybe 2 unicorns left on a national scale of breweries that don't do national distribution that any distributor would love to get their hands on. And one is aforementioned the brewery out of Massachusetts, Treehouse, and probably Russian River. But outside of that, is there another whale like when Bell's came to town or New Bell's? I don't think so. I don't think distributors are necessarily looking to add to their beer portfolio. Let's face it, they've all entered to the spirit and wine business. They're selling chips, they're selling water, they're selling everything else. So I think, again, it's a hard look in the mirror of, they say they want my beer, but is that just a deflection point or is that a reality? Because if they really wanted your beer, and I don't want to sound harsh, they would have your beer. Dan?
Marc, how much concern did you have that did it end up being, did you find through distribution that there was concern or not in the people that carried it, right? Whether they compared their tap lines or how they were able to speak to your beer or the type of establishment?
There was some talk of that early on about like kind of quantifying the account, but the only thing that we really talk about, especially with our distributor and our retail partners, is the only thing that we have because we're a haze factory and it's very, you know, not a very shelf-stable beer, is that the beer is kept cold at all times. And outside of that, I can't necessarily, none of us can really control that. We try as best as we can. We had some internal conversations. There was a brewery out of Vermont that used to vet accounts, send in secret shoppers, and if they didn't even pour the beer right, they weren't allowed to pour this beer. I find that incredibly douchey. You know? Why do we make beer? To sell beer, to run a business, to make some money, to have this thing that we're super passionate about, create a life for ourselves. So just stop like wrestling around with the whole idea that selling stuff is bad. Why the fuck did we get into this? That's the first one, by the way. But why did we get into this? And it's to sell product. It's to run a business. So just look at it that way. Distribution might not be the answer, but driving as much of that to your tap rooms is. Does that make sense? You know? What other questions do we have out there?
And just the other thing on distribution, if you choose to do it, the distributor today has got as much turnover as we can have. And so that, that salesman that used to sell, Bright Wisner, we had them, they used to have salespeople there for 20, 30 years. You go in there now and none of the old people are there. It's a churn. And they're paying them less because they basically want order takers, merchandisers, so they're selling 1,500 SKUs. So you get lost in the distributor to begin with. I look at it as it's a funnel. They've got 12 suppliers with 20 products of each. How do you drop through that funnel? And then you say, well, I'm going to put a rep out there. Well, rep for us costs easily $100,000+. So unless you're selling 100,000 cases, we can't justify having a sales rep. So, this is where I think people get themselves in trouble. They got to bottle, so they buy a bottle line, can line. They put a sales rep out there. They're not making their margin, and you're losing money. And half the time, they don't even know they're losing money.
Until it's too late.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can tell you right now, I get two plus calls a week from people that want to bail out. And it's the same story every time. If I met my projections, I'd be okay. And the other thing is I have 2 times the debt that I should have every single time.
We're painting a real rosy picture up here, I can tell.
You guys should be saying fuck instead of us.
Right. But it isn't doom and gloom, because here we are, we're in this amazing state of New York with this incredible association that has fought hard, thanks to people like Dave Kadaleski, to change so many laws in this state. So if you need to distribute, self-distribute. You gotta pick up truck, throw the beer in the truck, get your account list, build it up, because we've said this before. You get that self-distribution, and if you get some traction, then that's really where a distributor is going to start paying attention for a couple of reasons. If they see it moving, it piques their interest, because okay, that's moving, that's of interest to us. It certainly makes their life easy if something's chugging along. But we've said this before, if you haven't listened to it, keep great records, because if you decide you're doing self-distribution and you decide to go with a regular distributor, call it that, get what, Fred?
At least, if you've got a good brand, you should get 5 times growth.
That was your time to say get paid.
Get paid.
We went over this.
Yeah. I agree with Mark, is that if you are going to distribute yourself, build it up to the point the distributor wants it. Those rights are worth money. And that's another thing I get a lot of calls on. Well, they're offering me 1 or 2 times gross. No. Simple no. Just hang out. If they really want it, they'll pay you.
Just to add to that, once they do, they're invested.
Exactly.
Right.
You have to go out and sell your product.
Yeah, they've got skin in the game. There's other outlets too on top of self-distribution. There's this cat in Syracuse, Chad Meeks, I believe. I can't remember the name of his distributorship.
Third Space.
What?
Third Space Distribution.
That's right. So there's an outlet, because he only focuses on New York State beer, and he's looking to fill his portfolio with all New York State products. It would be just reach out. I don't know a lot about his business. I don't know what his reach is. I don't know if it's from one corner 90 to the other, if it's just 81 corridor. I don't know, but there are some other things that are out there in addition to that.
There's a guy in Rochester doing the same thing.
There is.
Yeah.
Is it you? Is that Rob? Rob. Talk to Rob. Fuck that Chad guy. Talk to Rob. Get into the market. Talk to retailers. Get some. I say this all the time. don't just go with a distributor because they're knocking on your door. It doesn't necessarily mean they're the right business partner for you. Vet that distributor, get out into the market, even just pick up the phone. You can do everything electronically between Instagram, Facebook, emails, whatever. Reach out, find out who retailers like to work with. Maybe they have recommendations. Maybe like, you know what, this wholesaler is really cool and they're growing and they're looking for some new partners. Maybe there's an avenue. Stay at home as much as you can, distribute as much as you can at home. It is fun to get out, you know, spread the word of your brewery, you know, come into Albany and do tap takeovers. I mean, you have that luxury, why not? It's just another extension of selling beer, but like more focused rather than an everyday type of thing. Like that's the beauty of doing beer in this. We have so many options. It's just like, what is best for you? You know, is distribution right? You know, we kind of had to because we built a bigger brewery, even though we scaled it down, but we thought I'm going to say this, we thought we would have the Lions. You know, when Mass Riot would have had a height, that's when we decided to do a production brewery. And then COVID told us to take all of our plans and fuck off because everything you can get everything through distribution now. Whether it's, is anybody shipping beer through New York State? Are you doing that? Are you shipping beer in other states? If you are looking to sell more beer and you're not shipping beer in New York State, sorry, but shame on you. You should be on your website, figure it out, because I'm not saying it's the biggest revenue stream for us, but we do quite a bit of beer shipping in New York State. I shipped beer to Auburn one day. We're in Auburn. That's another reality of COVID. A lot of people just don't like leaving their house. So just uncover re-rock in your backyard in New York State before you start, you know, panicking and thinking you gotta do things, because that is traditionally how our game works, that 3-tier system. There's really 4 or 5 tiers if you want to call it that.
When you're talking about shipping beer, do you guys have a person who is like the dedicated shipping person?
Yes.
Or is it you doing that?
It used to be, then we hired more people.
Okay.
And I took that off my plate.
So that justifies that person's hours spending?
No, it's not a one person. It's just like, you know, we've had different people, and you know, we've just been able to say like, okay, this is part of your responsibility now, because I am not as day to day around the brewery as much as I used to be because I'm spending more time in the market. But you figure it out. Like we'll even tell people we only ship on Mondays and Wednesdays because we want to make sure it's shipped cold. We want to make sure it's 2-day. You know, you can set it up. They pay for the shipping. They pay for the packaging. You're just selling the beer, and you're getting the packaging costs. So it's a very easy way to do it. And on top of that, merch. We ship a lot of merch. Merch you can ship anywhere. Beer you can only ship in New York State. Although get with Paul Leone or Stefan or somebody, because there are some states that you can ship beer to with a very easy registration process. And I think you'd be surprised how much. And it's easy. Honestly, really, you're still getting that full margin, and your whole responsibility is just bringing the beer to a UPS store.
It's often a gift.
No.
It's often a gift, so like our biggest shipping product is usually Glen. And you get $50 easy for 12 pack, because they don't care.
Yeah.
They just want it.
Yeah, it's not a violation of our distribution contracts. Again, another thing about New York State, I mean, here we are in a full distribution. We're in every county of the state, and we're opening a tap room in Lake Placid, and if we really wanted to, we could open 4 more around the state. So there's all kinds of outlets. I'm going to go back room and then come back over here.
Yeah, just to clarify, UPS stores cannot ship your beer. Those are franchises. You have to go to the corporate store.
I think you can register the sale online.
Unless that store has a liquor license, then they can ship
Well,
your
there's
beer.
that, but you also got to register with UPS, and they send you a big box of stickers that someone that's 21 years or older has to sign for that package. So there are some steps that you have to go through. And yes, using a UPS corporate would be ideal.
UPS picks up right there.
Yep.
For the beer shipping, does whatever software you go like on your website, Square or Rise, whatever, does it block sale if someone tries to like order it and say like my shipping address is Pennsylvania, or do you just keep putting it on the website like don't buy this shit if you're in Pennsylvania, it's not going to
So I don't know if all of them do. I know internally we have to we have to spend the extra time saying nope, sorry, but we have to refund your order. So frankly, it takes less time than it does to package the beer and drive it to the store. But you can, yeah, you just have to, that has to be on your end. I don't know.
Just want to make sure you didn't have a cool trick at all. So
I don't have any cool tricks at all.
Up in Vegas, way to go.
Yeah.
Where you do cross that line, you can set your shipping radius to only New York State.
See, there's your
Yeah,
answer. Kevin has the tricks. I do
They
not.
can still place the order. They can still place the order.
And arrived, it will lock it. If you have like your route, you just say, like, these are my things.
Well, that's arrived and that's online sales and whatnot, but with our Square site, they can squeak through. But we just notice it and we just decline it. Or we just ship it, I don't know. We don't do that, I promise, we don't do that.
I mean, they can still.
Yes, yeah. Kevin's beer reviews in Rome, Italy. The other Rome. What else you guys got? Yep. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
With consolidation happening more and more, distributors consolidating and buyouts and all that kind of stuff, have you gone through one, or can you walk us through like what that looks like?
I have not.
Yeah, so what happens legally, they basically sell your rights to the acquiring distributor, and you're pretty much screwed. But what you can do oftentimes is you can negotiate, so up their investment in your brand. So just don't sign off on the thing. Have a discussion with them and say, if I'm going to sign this, this is what I want. And sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. But you know, these guys are pretty clever now in making sure that when they buy a distributorship, the brands are locked up with it. So the best thing you can do is just negotiate marketing spend for yourself. I mean, you can, you know, sometimes you can get out, but where are you going?
Yeah, so that's actually happened, not to anybody at this table, but it has happened in our state already, where there was an operation that was in Western New York. They didn't have a great reach, and then there was a New Jersey operation, and I got calls from 3 different breweries that were like, I'm all of a sudden finding myself in a situation I wasn't prepared for. It's turned out all right, but to Fred's point, there's not a lot of legal recourse there. And I can say, like I know in the state of Vermont, another wholesaler closed, but Alchemist was able to somehow block a deal because the distributor that they got sold to would not guarantee cold shipping. So they were able to look at their contract and say, well, this is null and void. So there are some ways around it. Again, that's Vermont. I don't know about the liquor laws in the state of Vermont, but yeah, there's really not a whole lot you could do. I suppose what you could do is if you were really unhappy about it, just stop sending them beer and pull out and figure out and wait it out and have those conversations. But no, you don't have a lot to say. And I'll also address something in this room. It wasn't you that asked me last year, but also like third party like Tavor and some of those things where someone asked me if I wanted to do it and I quickly snapped and said, no. Well, guess where we're selling beer now? Tavor. We had Tanner come along and had a good relationship with them, and what really changed my mind is I thought I had to sell them beer at wholesale pricing, and when I learned that I could sell them beer at retail pricing, I was all over sending beer to Tavor. And I would like to find a few more. Again, it's not padding our bank account, but it's just another outlet. If any importers reach out to you, again, there was another outlet that I hadn't really considered because I didn't understand how beer traveled across the ocean and stayed fresh. But here I am finding myself sending beer to an importer in Finland and frightened that people in Belgium and Bamberg are drinking hazy American IPAs. I don't know how to feel about that. I feel slightly dirty about it, but again, it's just another outlet. And I'll be completely frank in saying what I love about it is that I can reach out to them in December and let them know what beers I'll have in January, because how much do we all love January beer sales and February? And it's just like another extension. It's just another way to generate some revenue and to sell some beer. And they are surprisingly easy to work with. You would think that shipping beer overseas requires a lot of red tape. That's just here, people. That's just here. The Europeans are awesome to work with. Everything's so easy. Send me an invoice. Okay, anything else? No. Awesome. Perfect. Can I just move there? So that, again, there's a lot of outlets. Again, the theme is the new reality. It's not all gloom and doom, but it's probably as messy as it's been in our history as craft brewers. Considering most of us have been open, 5 to 10 years for the most of us, so definitely more interesting.
Just to build on that, it is not doom and gloom. Having been around for 136 years, the thing is, I'm actually younger than Marc. I would tell you what has made us thrive most of the time is, one, delighting the customer. If you delight the customer, they keep coming back. And two, just evolving yourself as a business and just keep evolving. There's always opportunities in the market if you look for them. Just keep looking and just keep your eyes open that you can change. And there is going to be disruption in this world. Maybe not in my career, but the distributor network, which is a necessary evil, and we can't survive without it. But with the consolidation and the margins going to 30% and doing less and just being focused on logistics, that's going to change. I was on a big healthcare company, and we dealt with a lot of Silicon Valley guys, and they'd come in and they'd talk and they'd say, your margin is on my mission. And what they target is any business that's got over 15% margin, they're going after. And beer distribution will be attacked at some point. You got Bezos, Amazon, owns Whole Foods, owns the Washington Post, in our nation's capital, where he's got a paper where he can change opinions. He can ship beer to a Whole Foods warehouse and distribute it across the state. I get Gatorade, a case of Gatorade, that could be a case of beer. And there's no way that's not going to change as we go forward. Mm-hmm. It's going to change. And unfortunately, the distribution channel as it sits today will get disrupted in some way or another. Because right now, all that's holding them is the laws. And that's going to change.
So you think it's a good thing or bad?
Being our size, we need the distributor network. I think the distributors have got to learn that we are their customers. So, and I think unfortunately, we as suppliers, the distributors look at their retail community kind of as their customer, and I'd say kind of. How many times does your distributor say, don't take my tap line? It's not their tap line, it's the retailer's tap line. It's their cooler. It's not their damn cooler. It's the retailer's cooler. And what they gotta do is they gotta focus, one is, how do they make more money for the retailers? And for us, we have to be constantly reminding them that we are your customer. We're your supplier. We're your customer. We're buying warehousing services, sales services, merchandising, and paying us. So we are buying their services. And what I'm telling you is that 30%, for most of the people in this room, you're being overcharged. And that's where the disruption's gonna come. They don't see us as their customers. And they don't see the retailer as their customer either. Just look at how they're working after COVID. And when you don't see your retailer as a customer and you don't see your supplier as a customer, I'm gonna tell you the end is coming.
Yay! She should start drinking earlier, man.
Let's get ready to do a little. What do you see that wholesalers or the distributors are doing well for you guys? Are there strengths? These are your partners.
I think.
Are there strengths?
I think, in fairness to the distributors, that with consolidation, they have way too many products to sell. They don't train their people, and so what they do well is they sell the brand that's got buzz. When I came back to the business, my father said to me, he's always kind of negative on distributors, and after about 3 or 4 years, when we got things going the right way, he'd say, man, we got some great distributors now. We didn't have they're the same distributors. Difference between a great distributor and a good distributor, a hot brand. And that's why, to me, it's like, if you focus on delighting your customer, you're gonna always win. You know, for as much as the New York facility thing irritates the shit out of me. I was in Albany Airport the other day, the local bar. There's not a New York State beer in there. It's Sam Adams, Dogfish, imports, etc.
Fly out of Syracuse. We got you.
Yeah, no, Syracuse is good.
We got you.
But, you know, if you are a hot brand right now, Fiddlehead, you're in a lot of New York City, state facilities. And it's not them doing it.
Yeah.
They're hot.
I think there are some strengths. I mean, it depends on the distributor, but we have, you know, of our network here in New York, the ones that are from Syracuse to Buffalo, I think they're tenacious. I think they're aggressive, and they do have a very big portfolio. But they're ones that I think get it more than most. Like, they are just super relationship driven, to Fred's point. Like, I think they value the retailer. I think they listen to the retailer, and that's not the case in a lot of other places. You know, I'll share this, like, we entered the state of Massachusetts, Vermont, Pennsylvania, and we're about to enter, actually Ohio's picking up their first order today. And I found these distributors through basically internet searches, like looking for really small boutique-y type distributors. And I can tell you the one point of success I had with 3 of them was, look, I'm not asking you how much beer you can sell, but I'd like to send you some product. If you're interested, I'll tell you how much I can get you. I'm more looking at like pulsing the market rather than looking for PODs, worrying about volume or anything like that. And I can tell you that 3 of the 4 signed rather rapidly because they're like, that's awesome to hear. The liquid's really good. You have a good message. You don't have high expectations. I'm like, man, if it works, it works. And a couple of them have worked so well that I've been extremely surprised. Pennsylvania is our 2nd largest distributor in our network of 8 distributors. That floored me. Vermont's actually surprisingly selling more beer than I anticipated. Chris, I keep picking on you or pointing at you over there, was in Manchester, New Hampshire, and was in a bar that had more New York State beer on than most bars in New York State have beer on. That was
they
pretty
had
wild.
like 60% of their taps were New York beers in Manchester, and I was like, you don't see that in New York.
No, pretty wild. And so that's part of you know, something as an association we need to continue to attack, is like, how do we get more bars and restaurants in our own state pouring more of our beer? And that's not necessarily a distribution thing. That's a New York State Brewers Association. That's all the eyeballs in this room staring at each other to figure out.
Just to elaborate on that, why do you think that is? I mean, why? I mean, you see it all the time. You never see a ton of New York State product in a bar.
I, for the life of me, have been trying to answer that question for a decade plus. I don't know, and it even goes back to having conversations when I used to be with a beer distributor and selling a beer that was made in Rochester, and they're MFing me wondering why I'm not selling more beer in Ithaca, or Syracuse, or Buffalo, and the same thing with a brewery out of Syracuse. Why aren't we selling more beer, and so on and so forth. And New York's just got this weird vibe about local, man. It's like, oh, you're from Rochester, and that's local. Oh, you're from Buffalo, you're not local to me. We've got this weird thing happening in our state that I've long not been able to figure out. New York City probably being the one exception. If you're in the city, I think anything that's made in New York is considering local. Again, I'm not saying that that's the end-all be-all to go sell beer, because it is a tough market. You would think with 8 million people you could sell more beer, but I'm selling more beer in Philadelphia than I am in New York City. And it comes back to what Fred said. What's the answer? They want a rep. I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense for me to spend $100,000 to put a rep in the market to pick up a draft line a week when I could just take beer away from you and send it to Pennsylvania.
You know, I always say that New Yorkers love New York when they're out of the state. So we crush in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Where does everybody leave or go when they leave New York? North Carolina. And that's when they want home. You know, I've said to every last governor that we've had is that if we could get New Yorkers to be like Vermonters, New York would not have a business problem whatsoever. We'd be bursting at the seams.
or Oregon, or.
And so back to what I think the association has to do is that when we were building craft, in the early 90s, I was on the Brewers Association Market Development Committee, and we created this sell sheet, which was Why Craft. And so everybody, Sam Adams, Sierra, Brooklyn, everybody, when they went into a chain call, into an on-premise call, did a pitch on why craft for like 1 minute, 2 minutes. Everybody did it. And I would tell you, I guarantee you that helped build craft. And I think one of the things we gotta do in New York State is when we have reps or in our tap rooms, we gotta talk about why New York, and just keep pounding the same message of why New York, why New York, why New York, and it'll come. I just don't think people think about it. And in New York City is I lived there for 8 years, it's a very international city. Imports are probably 40% of the business down there. And it's international. You're not gonna get the loyalty to New York State. And then it's a big state. And upstate economically has been crushed for years. So, how psyched do people get when you've had an economic blight for 20 years?
Yay! What else you got? No other questions? Everyone's feeling like ready to gung-ho and go sign a distributor and sell more beer?
I just want to add to what we're saying about why they're not all in New York State. I think the customer wants something new every time they go into a bar. They're not going to a tap room.
I think that's accurate, but what we're seeing out there is Rotation Nation's actually kind of going away a little bit. We've been caught with our pants down. I didn't think we needed tap handles. Guess what's back? Fucking tap handles. And they're expensive, and they take 8 to 12 weeks to get. That's fun. And guess what accounts are telling us now? If you don't have a tap handle, I don't want your beer. When you get a tap handle, come back and visit me.
So do you guys know Oakland? So Brian, we put him in business basically. You tell him to make sure that if you buy from Oakland, does do tap handles. You can crank them out a lot quicker. You can get them somewhat cheaper in China, but they're not that much more expensive from Oakland. They're in Albany. And the other thing is, what?
His turnaround's about 3 weeks now. And if
Now you tell me.
If you need stuff right away.
Yeah, Brian is awesome. He does neons, he does all types of point of sale. And the other thing is make sure your distributors are paying half your tap line, or tap
Yes,
now.
1,000%. But yeah, you're not wrong. Like, the consumer wants anything shiny. That's why, again, in our distribution, we have maybe 2 year-rounders, Mass Riot and our seasonal program, and then I task the brew team and like, just keep new beers coming out because the wholesaler loves it. It's easy, it's it's out. Maybe not the best model, but it's just what we need to do and what we're doing right now. Rob?
So, you and Fred both made the same reference to having a sales rep with like $100,000 a year. What are your thoughts on the shared sales rep model that some breweries in New York have experimented with over the years?
I think it's a great idea. I think last year I even mentioned about there's been some talk. I can remember talking to a former brewer that no longer brews about brewers getting together to start their own distribution network. And I think there's health in that. I think sharing a rep is good. I have a but. And my but would be some really good understanding about expectations out of that sales rep.
Yeah.
Because what I can see is 5 breweries in this room decide to hire a sales rep and share it, but Brewery A is selling a lot more beer than Brewery C, and what the fuck? How come you're not selling more of my beer? So I can see some potential tension in that as well. So I think it's a very healthy idea if you can get the right business partners together. I don't know legally how that works. You can speak to it.
Yeah, I
obviously
can
you're
speak to
doing
it.
that.
I was just questioning.
Yeah, so we did it with Woodchuck. We shared 3 reps back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and we did it with Brooklyn. I'm a huge proponent of it. Our model was really simple. Call it 100,000 cases. We split the cost. If I ended up the year selling 70,000 and they sold 30, I pay $70,000 of the rep, or 70% of the rep. Other person pays 30, and it just takes out the but. And again, to me, it's like if you have momentum behind your brand, that's what's gonna sell it.
Yeah.
So, and I personally think the mistake, Kraft went like this, everybody was seeing double-digit growth, raising price every year, and so everybody wanted their own sales force. Right now, I will guarantee you in the next year, we will have a shared model with some other guys our size. And the biggest thing to me is that, I don't know if I'm right on this, but it's a little bit of semantics. I think you gotta go into the retailer as a selling cooperative or a distributor or something that changes their mindset. Because for us, you go in and you sell Saranac, and you're selling Lake Placid, and you're selling Prison City, they're gonna say, well, I already got your tap, I'm not giving you another one. If you go in as a distributor, and I don't know that I'm right on this, but I feel like if I go in as a distributor or a cooperative, their mindset changes and says, I'll buy 4 products from you.
Yeah.
Yep, and it might make a lot more sense for some sort of consolidation on that front too. I was having a conversation with Joe Hinders at Albany Ale and Oyster, who traditionally would buy a lot of direct sales, and it's also kind of a dark cloud statement, but he's moving away from that because anybody that runs a regular business, tap room or whatnot, the one thing that was driving him nuts is the amount of invoicing and sales calls and stuff that he was spending time on. So he's started to kind of reduce the amount of call points that he'll deal with just to make his life easier. He wants to support breweries, but he's also like, how many different deliveries can I get? I'm getting an email on a Monday from a brewery when I've already stockpiled for the week. I've already got my tap lines planned out. So something like that might actually be of more benefit than, say, just every brewery on earth calling the same call center at a retailer. Actually makes quite a bit of sense, if that's what you want to do. So, and I recommend you, if that's something you're interested in, get together with your best people, in this room. Obviously, some of us have closer relationships together, and I would recommend getting in bed with those people, just so you're having a very amicable relationship on that front. Did you have there was hands going there. I didn't know if it was going up or what. All right. We're at 3 o'clock.